This is the outer part of the coat. And now the next thing I need to do is attach the lining. So I'm going to pin it in place and then show that. The lining is now pinned in place, and the next step is to sew it here at the hem, the facing part, and then going the side and all the way around, and then the hem on this side, just the facing of the hem of the lining fabric, that's going to be sewn separately, and also the hem in the outer part, because, well, after I have sewn these three sides, the next step is to sew the sleeves, the lining of the sleeves to the outer sleeves, and I'll be showing that one next. There are actually a couple of things that I need to do before the sleeves, and one of them is to stitch around these edges. I have now turned this the right side out, and now I'll need to stitch the edges just to keep them flat, because this is thick fabric, it's wool blend, and these won't, well, these edges, they won't be really sharp, but they'll stay flat when I stitch them. The edges are now stitched, but I lost another needle. There was just in the places where there were these seams, like in the waist and there in the collar, it was just so thick that the needle couldn't take it. So I ended up using a needle meant for sewing leather. I thought that would at least be strong enough, and yeah, it was. No problems after replacing with that needle. But there was here in the hem, the stitching doesn't go all the way down because those corners were too thick to go under the presser foot. There's too many layers of fabric, so had to stop the stitching before getting to the corner. I also remembered that there is this problem which needs to be fixed, and the way to do that is going inside here, and let's see, here is the collar. Yep, there is this seam allowance, and then let's see, this seam allowance, and the idea is that you take from the shoulder seam to the other shoulder seam, and you turn this seam allowance inside the collar, and then you sew these seam allowances together here from the shoulder seam to the other shoulder seam, so this distance. Just sew these together, so when you hang the coat from this, it doesn't go like this. These are going to stay together as they should. So sewing that in here is the next step, and after that it's sleeves and the hem. And I'm also planning possibly to make a removable hood for this coat, because, well, it's winter coat and a hood would be nice, but I didn't want to make it a permanent part of this coat, so I'm probably going to make one that can be removed. So it's a few buttons here, and then the hood has these small loops from rubber band, and then they can be attached to the buttons, and then you can either use the hood or remove it, whatever you prefer. So the next thing is to sew the lining here in the sleeves, and you just push the sleeve lining inside this outer sleeve, make sure it's straight, and then let's see here, just align the seams. This is the easiest way to make sure the lining isn't twisted. So the seam inside goes along the seam outside. And okay, now I need pins. Here, just pin the lining here so the seams are together. You pin it here to make sure it doesn't get twisted. In the next stage, which is you go in here from the hem, in between the lining and the outer, and you find the sleeve there, and then pull the sleeves here, so we are in between the two pieces, and here the sleeve, it's pinned, and then just remove that pin so we can turn this way, so right sides together, and pin it there, and now just continue pinning it right sides together so you can get it, the lining is even along the outer fabric. Just pin it all the way around. Do the same for the other sleeve, and then you sew these together, and that's all you need to do for the sleeves. Once that's done, you just pull the lining down and push this sleeve out in place. And then the last part is to first hand sew the hem of the outer piece, and then make sure the lining is the correct length. If not, shorten it as necessary, and then you can machine sew. Just turn it twice and sew it. And that's all that's left for this coat. Then it's finished. But of course I was planning to make the hood, so I'll probably make that later, but not having it doesn't stop me from using the coat. And here is the finished coat, and it was really hard to photograph it indoors. You can't really see the pattern because it's dark fabric, and if I had managed to finish this yesterday before sunset, I could have gone outside to take the photos. It was sunny day yesterday and the pictures would have been better, but I finished this so late last night that I couldn't take the pictures outside, and today it was so dark. It's cloudy and dark, so the pictures were even worse than this. I had to take these indoors. But hopefully you can see enough of this. And if the upper part looks a bit loose, that's on purpose. This is a coat meant for -25°C, so there needs to be room for extra clothes underneath. In these pictures I'm only wearing one long sleeved shirt underneath, so it looks loose, but it's just the right side for putting on a thick wool sweater or something in addition to the thinner shirt. So it's not perfect, but once again it's good enough.